Weagle Weagle, War Damn Eagle, kick him in the butt, Big Blue. It's Dalton Odom and my co-host Carter too, back at the Everything Auburn podcast. Carter, how's it going?
It's going, man. Wasn't ready for it, but it's good. I'm ready. That was very loud.
It wasn't loud. I'm sorry.
It's good. I love it. That's what
it's
you get.
just the mic man voice.
He's
I'm
used
sorry.
to the megaphone, I suppose.
am. I'm sorry.
Well, welcome to it. Dalton's been torturing me with the cinnamon broom for another month.
Yeah. So if you were here on the last episode, and if you haven't, make sure you go check it out. We learned that Carter hates cinnamon. So what I decided to do was I have a miniature cinnamon broom in my office just because I love the fall. I went and put it on his air conditioning unit to try and make it blow cinnamon air into his office, and it just didn't work. He found it immediately.
Instantaneously. I also didn't have the air conditioning on, so
it just didn't work out.
Apparently I hate things.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to another one. And I am very happy to say that it's not just me and you talking and waffling back and forth all day.
Thank goodness.
But we have an incredible special guest, Wendi Weimar, who... the shoelace queen herself, if I may.
Exactly.
If you may.
Welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we'll get into it, I'm sure, but you do have... Is it fair to call you the shoelace queen?
There's people that compete for that title, so okay. I'm not really sure that's a... I haven't officially been awarded that title, so I'm not sure.
You have now.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We should have made a plaque.
Yeah.
But you're big time now, so...
Now?
No, you are. You have been. What, Good Morning America you've been on?
Truth.
So you've been able to... You've blessed us with our rinky-dink little show here.
Mm-hmm. I'm doing my best to elevate.
But I appreciate it, coming down here. But you're doing some really cool... But you actually do research on shoes and shoelaces, which is the reason for the Shoelace Queen title.
Correct. Yes.
But before we get in there, Dalton has a list of grievances, I think, that he wanted to share with you.
Okay.
Which is particularly why we think you're a special guest here.
So starting out with number one. So these are all from former students of yours.
Okay.
We don't know who said these things, but this is what they had to say.
They have been anonymized.
They have been, Dr. Weimar has been by far my favorite professor in graduate school at Auburn. She is driven to help you succeed and will do anything to help you understand, even if that's a funny YouTube video. She is awesome and uses phrases like slice of pie and wicked cool. A truly great professor. Can you explain what slice of pie means?
So,
just out of my curiosity.
So, a lot of people use the term piece of cake.
Sure.
So, piece of cake, slice of pie.
Okay.
It is, do you understand? Do you feel comfortable with the material? Are you kind of in that zone?
I love it.
So, yeah. See, I'm a Yankee too. And so, my top, not that I'm a Yankees fan. I'm a Red Sox fan.
Make that clear.
Yes. Because I'm a Red Sox fan.
Right.
So,
important distinction.
Yes, very much so. And so some of my phrases are very common where I come from.
Sure.
But down here, it's like first time I heard what Cappywonkus.
Yes.
Cattywampus.
Cattywampus, yes. That is...
It's a very southern...
Yes.
That's how I would describe growing up, like the people, like I had my next door neighbors, and the people live on my street, and the people live cattywampus from me.
Yeah.
They lived right over there.
Yeah, we call that catty corner.
So, okay.
Cattywampus, same thing.
Yeah.
So a wampus is a corner.
Yeah.
In my brain.
Sure.
It is now.
I think it works.
One other thing that another student said...
There's more.
There's more.
No, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
But wait.
There's more.
I'm a junior at Auburn, and she is by a landslide the best professor I've had. Great teacher. I had her class at 8 a.m., and I seriously didn't mind waking up.
That's high praise right there.
It sure is, because let me tell you, those 8 a.m.s, they're rough.
True.
They're rough.
Tough. They are indeed. But I think this is part of the reason why we thought you'd be a great because if you can make an 8 a.m. class fun for people, then you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You really are. But I did have to ask, because you did mention you a self-proclaimed Yankee.
Yes.
Not a Yankees fan, but a self-proclaimed Yankee.
Truth.
That's not very close to Auburn.
No.
If I may.
Yes.
How did you find yourself on the loveliest village on the plains?
Yeah, great question.
Came up with it myself.
Outstanding. So that's part of my teaching technique to encourage people. So like when they ask questions to support them in that. So great question. But it is a great question above and beyond that. I had always thought that I would get a PhD. I started my collegiate career as an engineer and realized that that was not my passion. And the universe, higher power, God, whatever you want to interpret it to be, kept putting teaching experiences in front of me. And so I became a teacher. And I really think that that was my best destiny. I do think that that's how I interact with the world, in addition to my research. So I went to school, became a teacher, and then in my senior year going into my senior year, I got hurt, and athletic trainers fixed me using eSTEM, and I said, I need to know everything that you just did to me because this was fascinating. And that was the day I became a biomechanist. So my undergraduate degree, I had a double major, double minor. I was secondary education, physics and chemistry. And then I had a minor in math and a minor in theater. And I had gone into the theater because I thought that would help me be a better teacher. I thought that if I could create an environment where the students felt comfortable and had the opportunity to have access. And what I learned, one of the biggest things I learned is being a theater minor was that the play doesn't happen on the stage. It's your job, if you are on the stage, to create the environment in the reach of the audience. And so it really goes on in the mind and the grasp of the audience. And it's their job to come and get it. So you have to bring it to them, make them to be excited to engage in that. When I graduated from my master's, I started teaching high school. Actually, I worked a year working with individuals with traumatic brain injury to try and help them recovery. Realized that was too hard on my heart. That's not how I interact with the world. There are some beautiful people who do beautiful things with individuals who are recovering from catastrophic injuries, and whatever you believe your higher power to be, bless them. Give them the energy and strength to do it. So I was teaching high school, coaching field hockey, basketball, and softball, loving my life, and I started to feel like I was relaxing, and I said, I could retire from here. This would be okay. And I said, do you want to get a PhD? And I said, I think I do. And I said, look, I don't care if you change lanes, but you got to decide. And I decided, and I applied to a bunch of places, and I had no intention of coming to Auburn. None. Zero. Okay? The only reason I applied was because my folks moved to Florida. And I was like, oh, all right, I'll get one close. Because I was at Indiana and Penn State. Sure. And so we had visited Indiana, and we're driving back to Florida, and my dad said, if I turn right here, I can be in Auburn in an hour. And I was like, good. I'm not going there, but good for you. And he said, and my mom said, come on, Wen, you got to look at it. And I was like, fine. Well, we drove up College Street, and those beautiful brick, now this is 1996, okay? Beautiful brick buildings. You were right by Sanford. Auburn was still small then, smaller than it is now, not that it's big now. Quaint. And there were a lot of components of it that reminded me of a New England town.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when I went and I met the professors, and I was over in the School of Kinesiology, I describe it as putting on a jacket that just fits. The length of the sleeves are right.
What an analogy.
Yeah. See, I'm wicked artsy. People don't appreciate it, okay?
Wicked artsy.
So I was like, okay, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. And I use that story to tell a lot of students when they come and they're like, hey, I want to go to school here. And I'm like, you need to find your path. Yeah. You know, you really need to find where you fit. And if that's at Auburn, that's awesome. We're so excited because I truly believe that a rising tide does lift all boats, and the world can only be what it's supposed to be if people are where they're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. You know, now if you want to be here at Auburn, we're going to do everything we can to pick you up. But if you're supposed to be at Indiana State, more power to you, and we're here as a resource for you to help elevate you because that's going to make the world better. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do in my little way. So
I'm glad you found Auburn.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm very glad.
Yeah, and then I brought my cynicism and New England crassness down here, and a young lady that was getting their PhD when I was getting my PhD here walked up to me and said, "Are you a big jerk as you pretend to be?" And I said, well, welcome to Alabama.
Bless her heart.
Yeah.
I said, no, what, why? Why would you say that? And she said, you never speak unless spoken to. You never look anybody in the eye. And when somebody asks you a question, you answer it and move on. And I said, everything you just said is a survival skill where I come from, okay? It's flipping cold up there. We don't chat outside, okay? We answer the question and then we go inside. And people, the strangest things have happened. Like one of my doctoral students said, why don't you like my wife? And I said, I like your wife, she's fine. And he said, well, how come every time she calls, you just give the phone to me?
What do you mean?
Exactly. I was like, because she wanted to talk to you, not to me. Well, see, in the South, you have to chat, and so
you gotta figure out how to. There's some chatty Cathys around.
Oof.
Yeah.
So if I carry that up north, though,
Some people make podcasts and everything. What jerks?
just chatty.
I know.
Man. Well, I go back up north, and they're like, could you get to the point, please? Which is probably kind of like where the problem right here. So now I'm going to answer your biomechanics question. So
please, yes.
What is biomechanics? So the 50-cent definition of biomechanics is the application of mechanical principles to biological systems. Okay, that does not help a lot of people in the artsy field to grasp that. Okay, so what people use biomechanics. So think about an engineer who uses those tools to study movement, and that's what we do. So, and there's people that study geckos walking, roaches walking.
Oh yeah.
Mice. Matter of fact, I was on a call today. A faculty member wants me to help them study the gait of chickens.
Casual Wednesday.
As you do.
Yeah.
As you do.
What an interesting phone call.
Yes.
That would be.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I love my job, because the Raptor Center will call us and say, hey, can you come over and take a look at this eagle? It was hit by a car. We're not sure if it has arthritis in its wings and if we can release it back into the wild. I mean, now they make the decisions. They're the veterinarians. I'm not saying we do, but we do contribute to that, We worked with the swim team. I worked with a bunch of Olympians on the swim team, on the track team, and we just give that feedback to the coaches and to the athletes, and they kind of employ that. So, and we basically apply Newton's laws of motion to how people move. Like there was a breaststroker, his name was Mark Gangloff, and we used to work with David Marsh way back in the day. And we'd go over, and it was a lot of fun. We have an underwater camera, and we'd put a TV on the side of the pool, and we'd walk next to them and film their strokes, and then the person would lean on the edge of the pool and watch the TV, and coach would say, what do you see? And I'd say, I see this. And then he'd say to the athlete, get your elbow higher, So really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And he went with Mark Gangloff, when we pointed out the one of the deficits in his stroke, and I'm not taking credit, I'm saying that I provided an idea, okay? He's the one who worked from the time he was 6 to the time he was, however, when he, won his gold medals. But he went from number 17 in the world to number 3.
Wow.
And swam with Michael Phelps on one of the relays.
So that's the crazy, because understanding like the human body and how it moves is one thing, but if I may, you're not a expert at knowing the proper technique for swimming. But how does that translate to know, like, I know how the arm and the leg and the shoulder and everything moves.
Great question.
But to know how it translates to a sport that you're not an athlete in that sport. How do you do that?
Yeah, great question. And so what I tell people when I go and work with swimmers is that what I know about swimming is how not to drown. Okay, so that's
a good skill.
Let's all just start on that same level. Okay, and but they didn't care about me knowing the intricacies of the breaststroke kick, which I think is really bothersome to me in my propulsive mode. When I'm like, dude, why would you do that? And like, I don't know, it's the rules. I'm like, well, do you have to do that? And they're like,
can we change this?
Yeah, we have to do that. I'm like, well, all right, fine. So because the tools are the tools, and they're the same tools that a mechanical engineer applies when they're trying to build a car or a dolly system for your cameras.
Sure.
Okay. So decreasing the friction, improving and making a better wheel, those sorts of stuff. Those rules, I'm just applying them to a different set of conditions.
Yeah.
Okay. So my dad was an engineer. My brother's an engineer. I fell in love with science when the Tacoma Narrows Bridge fell. because I didn't think concrete and steel could bend and twist that much before and still stay intact. Yeah. It eventually failed, but that was one of my first things that really kind of got me in that direction. So, yeah.
Incredible.
That's interesting.
Well, then, so the other thing I wanted to ask is, because I did kind of tease this earlier with the shoelaces. Yeah. You've done a lot of work in, like, I don't know what the right word, you'd know better than me, like walking gaits, posture. Yeah. How your you were telling us before about how you tie your shoelace. Yeah. Affects and cascades up the whole body. And can you tell me what's the right way to tie my shoe?
Okay, so
there's more than one way.
Let's
right?
get into
Aren't there
214 depending on the number of eyes that are on your shoe.
Yeah.
So and it's all for different things. And if you have like so let's go back to the beginning. All right.
Let's do it.
First of all, I would like to thank Auburn University for giving me the opportunity to run the lab the way I run my lab. Mm-hmm. I came in and kind of part of the old school. And a lot of labs have a very specific line of research where they might have a clinical population that they pay attention to. I have been gifted the opportunity to be diversified. Okay? Here's the bottom line for me. I love biomechanics, and I love to do everything I possibly can with it, which is why we've done birds and dogs and horses and people and swimmers.
Pretty wide breadth.
Yes, yes. And now maybe even chickens now.
Apparently.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, that's a whole other thing. Anyway, so shoes. So one of the things in the evolution of my doctoral students is they come in, they work on a project that's going on in the lab, then they take on a small project of their own, and then they evolve into their dissertation. So one of the things we used to do when we were over in the Coliseum, they would have a lot of cheerleading camps going on in the Coliseum. And so, exactly. Yeah. It's full circle.
I love it.
We are engaged.
Huge fan.
We're doing it.
We're doing
family.
it.
Auburn family.
Amen.
It's real.
All right. It is real. Dude, that is so real.
It is.
It truly is. I've joked, and now we've really gone on a set.
Yes.
I've joked. So I went to Auburn, worked at Auburn. I left for a few years, and I came back. And everyone likes to joke about family. And the Auburn family thing is like kind of cliche, and I don't think Auburn's the only people who use that terminology.
Right.
However, as lame as it sounds, it's real. It really is, and it's like...
And you can't explain it without making it sound like a cult.
It does a little bit.
Okay.
It does a little bit, but it is real. Like,
yeah.
It's 100% real.
Physical thing that you feel walking around on campus, seeing someone with an Auburn shirt on. Like it does do something.
So on campus, I expect it. Mm-hmm. You know, if I was on any campus, I would expect somebody who's here that if you bump into, oh, buddy, I'm sorry, you know, or, hey, great game last night, War Eagle. Okay, cool, no problem. I'm talking about how the Auburn family permeates outside of the campus. Mm-hmm. So again, being the suspicious New Englander that I am, when I went home from my first Christmas break and I had an Auburn shirt on and somebody yelled War Eagle at me, I dropped back ready for fight. And I was like, you want to go? You feeling froggy, Kermit? Just jump. Let's go, you know? So I got all upset. I was like, what are you doing? And the guy looked at me and he's like, War Eagle. And I'm like, hey, because I had heard War Eagle, hey. I wasn't up on the lingo.
Call and response.
That's right. So I came back and I told the story and people pounded the table and laughed just much like you guys did. Like, you're such a dodo head. I'm like, yeah, I was. So, but that was my first thing. So now I've been all over the country. I've been all over the world. And if I'm wearing Auburn gear, people will walk up to me. And this is the difference too. So I was in DC and this guy with a lot of medals on his chest walked by me very closely and very quietly, said, War Eagle. It was War Eagle. And this is going to sound stupid, but I felt safer in that environment right then. I was like, somebody's got my back, you know? And I believed in my heart right then that if I turned that guy and I was like, hey, that he would stop and take a minute and, you know, tell me how not to be lost or whatever it is. Yeah. And that has happened to me multiple times. And I tell these people, I tell people these stories. And they tell me stories, unbelievable stories, about, you know, flying out to California for the bowl game and, you know, the wife couldn't fly and the 20-year-old daughter was going to fly out and meet the father. Well, the father got caught in weather. And so these people who were sitting next to her when she heard her story said, we'll take you. And they just drove her and and then they all had dinner together. I mean, it really is, it's a real thing. And like I said, you can't tell the story without it sounding it's a little cult-like. And I also must admit that when that man yelled War Eagle, my mom wanted to fight him too. She was born and raised in New Jersey. She doesn't play. You know, that's just a thing. You know, she knows people with the middle name The. So
that's good.
So we don't fool. You know, we just give her a wide berth.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple of. No, it doesn't matter. I don't think we should share that.
But anyway, sorry. But you were talking about.
I was talking about shoes.
We were talking about shoes.
Hey, but War Eagle, everybody.
War Eagle. So my doctoral. So we would go out and we would watch on the first day of camp. We would watch the young ladies perform and dance and do their things, right? And men. Excuse me. No disrespect.
None at all.
No disrespect.
None at all.
And they would walk in their flip-flops. Then they would don their appropriate cheer shoes and do their thing. And then they would don their flip-flops. And I was like, they walk different in flip-flops than they do in their cheer shoes.
Yeah.
And nobody had talked about that. Mm-hmm. And whether it was good for you or not and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the purpose that we would go in there and watch them on Monday and then predict who would be hurt by Thursday. And then based on...
What a fun game.
Yeah, well, based on the deficits that we would notice and weaknesses and things, and we're like, oh, you know, like a coordination issue, and then we would go back and see if our predictions were correct. So it was
a coordination issue. Like that one looks clumsy.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about the coordination can be a function of, and this is why we do our job. So if we were at a sports team or if we were at a cheer team, we would walk up and we would then talk to the strength and conditioning coach and say, hey, this is a deficit in their performance. This could actually lead them to injury. And so we believe that if you do X, Y, and Z or work on X, Y, and Z, that potentially could avoid injury and become a better performer. Mm-hmm. And so and what I was doing was teaching my students how to analyze motion, how to identify breakdowns in form and technique. And again, like I said, I don't know a lot about swimming, but I know a lot about the rules of the road. You know, Newton's laws are going to tell us for every action there's an equal opposite reaction, and if your action is bad, you're going to get a bad reaction. So it's all that kind of stuff. And so we noticed the whole flip-flop shoe thing, and so my junior project for one of my doc students was to compare walking in sneakers to walking in flip-flops. Cool. He did it. We wrote it up. We submitted it to a national conference. WebMD picked it up, and it went absolutely viral. The Office of Communications Marketing.
Yep. That's us.
That's where we work.
Yeah.
That's us.
They stopped counting at 600 million interactions with our research. We actually got an award that year for the most positive interactions with Auburn University.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is truly incredible.
Yeah. Well, and we got phone calls from the BBC, from Australia, from India, from the West Coast. People were just curious about this. And then I was at the pool, as a matter of fact, and I got a phone call from one of my faculty members that are colleagues, and they said, when Good Morning America wants to talk about the whole flip-flop thing. And I was like, look, I am really busy right now. I don't have time for jokes, Dave. We can talk later, okay? And I hung up on him. And I went back to doing what I was doing. And he calls me back, and he's like, I'm serious. And I'm like, come on, really? And they're like, yeah. So he gave me the information. And so we did the whole Good Morning America thing. That got even more attention. That was cool. And so that was how we evolved into that. So then the next step was we were doing shoe research and more research about flip-flops and things like that. And I ran into, that got me in line with Dana Marquez. Mm-hmm. Dana Marquez used to be the equipment director here for athletics.
Love Dana.
Oh, fascinating guy.
Yeah.
I've received a lot of shoes from him.
Same.
So when at the end of the season or the end of their fiscal year, they'll give us shoes that we can do research on. So we can do, which is tremendous because shoes cost money. And so for us to be able to do these things, and so we can, and right now we're working on a partnership with Vivo Barefoot to do minimalist shoes. And you also talk about the lacing stuff. There's actually a lacing survey project that we're doing right now that's out there, and there's QR codes all over the place that you can go to our website and
there you go.
Click on the website
scan the
to
QR
be able
code.
to and scan the QR code. So we were talking to Dana, and we were talking about them being able to take advantage of the qualities of the shoe, you know, like the arch support, the grip of the toes, the heel cup, those sorts of stuff. And he said, well, you know, you can tie the shoe differently to take advantage of that. And my mind was there used to be a commercial where the head blew off and purple dust came out. That was purple dust in our lab that day. And so it was like somebody had given me permission to unlock a door. Like I never even thought about tying my shoes another way until I talked to Dana. And so Dana started to introduce us to ways to tie your shoes to keep the foot more engaged. And that's the beginning of it, right? So there's called a runner's loop where you tie the top, the top two eyelets of your shoes a little bit differently. And what it does is it sinks the heel cup in, and it engages the heel of your foot and the heel cup of the shoe better so that it's more connected and it doesn't feel like your foot is in a shoe hitting the ground. It feels like your foot shoe is hitting the ground. It's one unit. Okay. And so we do that for cleats and shoes and that sort of stuff. But if somebody has turf toe, if somebody has, a lot of runners will get what's it called? A bruise on their big toenail. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You can relace your sneakers to take the pressure off your big toe. And we've done this with, we worked with a doctor one time who was having neuropathy symptoms at the end of the day. And he had tried every shoe known to man. He had gone barefoot. He had done everything, and it just kept happening. And so we retied his shoes and took some of the pressure and guided his foot a little bit differently. He called us 2 weeks later and he said, I can't believe it. Wow. I don't know. You guys are magic. I think you did some voodoo thing on us while we were there. And
you
I
might have.
Like, we're not allowed to talk about that.
I do think it's remarkable, like how, I think you said, I've tied my shoes the same way every single time my entire life.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't want you to see how I've tied my shoes because I feel like you'd probably be appalled.
No judgments, man.
But you said there's 214?
Depending on the number of eyelets on your shoe, yeah.
Wow. Of those 214, give or take,
yep.
How many do you know that you could do? Do you have memorized? How many different ways can you tie your shoes right now without looking one up?
So...
Ish. I'm just really curious.
Okay, so it's the application of techniques at different locations along the eyelet range. So it's not so much that the way they come up with the math for that. And this is the other reason why I'm a little uncomfortable when you say that I am the queen of lacing, because there is a guy out of Australia, and I think he's called Dr. Shoelace or something like that.
Did I hit a copyright?
I don't know, man. I just don't want to step on toes. Yeah, okay. It's all about peace, love, and understanding in the shoelace world. Okay. Yeah. Because we want to bind with the shoelace.
We do.
Not separate. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So
everybody climbs a tree, nobody falls off.
That's beautiful. So it's basically kind of a runner's loop technique that we apply to put the force at a different point along the shoe to give you better. Like if you have a tendency to fall off the outside of your shoe, we would tie your shoes differently along that the outside border of your laces to give you more support over there. And so all of this goes back to taking advantage of the science that's in the shoe, and then also taking advantage of the lines of force and the lines of action that can help you be more engaged with your shoe and foot interface. And that's kind of what we try and do with that.
We know one thing that the School of Kinesiology does. They have the sports lab, and Carter and I both had the opportunity to go down there, and it's an extremely cool space. So if you don't mind touching on that a little bit and just telling the people what all y'all do down there.
Oh, yeah. So my lab has 3 prongs of activity. We work in, first of all, we teach, we do motion analysis, movement analysis to help people be better movers, and then we have our research component. And so that's the part of the training with my doctoral students. Now, with regard to our research, we are primarily a lower extremity lab, shoe, knees, that sort of stuff. So we do studies that contribute to people performing better, and hopefully by performing better, putting them in a better position to avoid injuries. Like, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, can you prevent injuries? No, okay? Right now, we just can't do that. Mm-hmm. But we can help people to develop an armor to be as most protected as they possibly can. So, for instance, right now we're looking at a study that is addressing movement variability in gait. And so what we do is we have people who just do 20 gait trials where they just walk up and down. And then we put a static obstacle in front of them, and they have to walk, and then they step over there. So the idea is, you'd think that when you walk the same way every day and every step, but you don't. because if a ball runs in front of you or a bug is coming or the foot traffic is addressing a certain way, we don't want to have a whole new plan come in to adjust for every little perturbation that happens. So you have this window of variability that you have when you walk. Well, we believe that as you get closer to the edge of those windows of variability, that's where you begin to look at injuries and that sort of stuff, where you've got almost a cognitive log jam where you're trying to figure out how to handle that situation. So we have them walk, we have them step over a static obstacle, and then we have where we have a moving obstacle that we have a remote control car that we drive. Yeah. Then we're also looking at individuals with high calves. So some people have higher calves or smaller calf muscles. Does that change your foot structure? Does that change how strong your toes are? Does every change in the position of the muscle actually yield a greater force production because it has less of a acceleration road to go through? And then we're looking at whether the partnership with Vivo Barefoot is to see if barefoot shoes actually help people wake up their foot more. Because when we wear these big fluffy shoes, the body's the biggest slacker there is. And if there's a way to get out of something to not work hard, it shuts down. So it says, oh, you've got big fluffy shoes. I don't have to work so hard with my intrinsic foot muscles to engage the ground and have a good force exchange. So we're looking to see if a minimalist shoe worn periodically could actually help re-engage the brain-foot-body connection and make you a better mover and engaging some of the smaller muscles in your pelvis that would help to stabilize your pelvis in your lower extremity. So those, and then we're also working with the vet school on the detection dog project, helping the dogs be healthier in their gait cycles. So,
wow, that's incredible. I think it's really cool because there's this poetic thing where that's your connection to the earth and the planet and the world that you experience, and it just cascades all the way up.
Exactly.
Incredible. Well, just thank you for coming here and just having a good time and a little chat with us and teaching us about sport biomechanics and how it works. And now I feel like I know a little bit better now. I can tell people what it means.
There you go.
I've learned a few words, what have you. But before we go, if you could, if I'm a student, pending grad student, someone wants to do how do I find you? What classes are you teaching? If this is something I want to get involved in, what are my steps?
Sure. So we have a website, the Auburn University Sport Biomechanics Lab. We're over in the first floor of the kinesiology building. If you Google me, I'll come up. And I know
she's famous.
There was a swimmer one time, he was an international student, and he's trying to come back into the country, and they were like, no, you've left and come back into the country too often. You have to stay out for 6 months now. And he's like, no, I'm a swimmer. Google me. And when he said Google me, I just started laughing so hard. I was like, what a great line. So if you Google Auburn University Biomechanics, Sport Biomechanics, you're actually going to find 3 labs. There's Dr. Oliver's lab, and she does work with the upper extremity and primarily throwing events. There's Dr. Roper's lab, who works more with clinical populations, helping people with Parkinson's and the elderly move better and stay healthier longer. And then there's us, who are just fascinated by movement and get involved. If you have any curiosity, if you want to be involved, your education is your responsibility. You have to take that next step. We can't go out and ask every individual on campus if they want to be involved in our stuff. You want to be involved in our stuff, drop us a note, come and see us, say this is what's interesting me. And we have a really good, we're kind of one of the pillars of orthopedic physical therapy. And so understanding the biomechanics of a body and the anatomy of the body better and the skeletal anatomy can put you in a better position to be successful in those careers as well.
Beautiful. Well, that's incredible. Well, maybe we can find you a few more students, a few more test subjects, if you will, to come out there and get figure out good ways to tie their shoes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this, we have more episodes. So find our podcast hub, or you can find us wherever you get podcasts. Listen to our past episodes, and we'll have another one next month, speaking to another incredible member of our Auburn family. And we'll see you again next time. So thanks for listening. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.